if you have your phone there. So we have an abbreviated show this morning. We're only on for 1 hour as the University of Illinois will come on at 10 o'clock. They'll be facing USC in Big Ten action. Wow, that still sounds weird. Illinois and USC. So we'll be joining the University of Illinois Broadcast Network at 10 o'clock. So with the abbreviated hour, we've brought in, we got the easy hour coming in before instead of the second hour coming in early. So I'm joined by my co-host, Ron Zetcher. Ron, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, Earl. It's great seeing you, and we've got a really great guest today.
Got a great guest. Kind of, introduce, as you always bring in great guests. We'll always learn something as well. It should be
yes. I guess our guest today is Rich Eichhorst. He's an iconic figure in the St. Louis area in the world of sports, and as an educator, as a citizen. He's done it all, and boy, we're going to have a lot of fun today. His wife did tell me one thing, though, before I walked in the studio. We were on the phone. She said, there's certain things that you and Rich cannot talk about over the air, and I said, we won't. So we're going to have a good time.
Okay.
Good morning, Rich.
All right. Good morning to you.
Yes. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Let me tell you something. You look like $1 million. When I told the guy over there how old you are, he didn't believe me. You want to tell everybody how old you are?
Well, in 22 days, I'll be 92. And most of the guys are not impressed by 92. You know what they're impressed by? I still got a lot of hair. So,
that's what I was saying.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, I thought you were like 60, 65. I thought you were like 60, 65.
Oh, yeah,
well, if you hang around him long enough, you'll think he's about 18. But anyway, Rich, I was just going through some things here. The things you've done in your career, it's incredible. But before we start that, I want to mention some of the really old time officials that I know you started with, and guys who set the bar very high for people like myself. And I'm going to mention Gene Barth, and Ray Sonnenberg, even Hantek, Lou Lehman, Al Conway. Tell me a little bit about some of those guys. I got a great
story about Gene Barth.
I'd love to hear it.
He and I worked a freshman game before the Billiken game, and Naval Nard was the commissioner and also the supervisor of officials. So he saw us work the game, and he talked to us afterwards. And then it wasn't about 4 or 5 days later, he called me on the phone. I didn't know it was him. I thought somebody was spoofing me about it. He says, I need you to go to Louisville to work a game tonight. And I didn't answer. And he says, yeah, can you go? And I finally realized it was him. So I had a game at a public high game at noon. And this was like at 9 a.m. So I called Gene Barth, and his wife, Betty, said, well, he's shopping now, but I'm sure he'll take the game for you, So I had to they had a plane ticket for me. So I went down and worked the Louisville game with Bob Workman. And it was a double overtime game. And when Narville Nave saw the paper the next morning, he called a coach. It was SIU Carbondale with who was the coach there?
I remember the guy. He passed. He was taking
Jack Hartman, probably.
And he said to Narville, he said, I'll take those two guys anywhere, any place. So I got 8 more games in the Valley. And that started me off. That was 1964.
Well, it started you off, and then let's see here. What do I have here? So you worked in the AFL, NFL, Missouri Valley Conference
USFL.
Basketball, Big 8, Big 10, Metro, USFL. You've worked in more officiating conferences and leagues than anybody in the history of St. Louis. There's no question about that.
Well, I was just there, and when they called, I went. So
that's right. we had some fun, didn't we? Let me, Earl, let me tell you a quick story. Rich and I had the Kansas North Carolina State game at North Carolina State. And
what year was this about?
It would be in the maybe early 80s.
Okay.
How, Rich?
Yeah, maybe late 70s. I don't remember.
It was more into the 80s, but nevertheless, Valvano was the coach at North Carolina State. So anyway, Kansas beats them at North Carolina State. So we're walking off the floor, and we're walking behind the North Carolina State team. And as we're walking, one of the North Carolina State kids is, he's saying to Valvano, those Big 8 referees, they really screwed us today. They were just awful. And they, and no wonder Kansas beat us. And then all of a sudden you hear one of the referees, the guy that I'm sitting next to, he says, "Oh yeah, the referees really got you today," And so Valvano, he says to the kid, it's unbelievable. He says, "Don't pay any attention to that referee. He's very immature." Remember, Rich?
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But Rich, last year I was honored. I really was honored to be his guest. He was the Lee May Man of the Year. And tell us a little bit about that, Rich. That's an unbelievable honor.
Well, I lived in Lee May all my life, and so if it moved, I became the president of it. So I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce and the Optimists, the Southwest Kiwanis, the Friends of JB, just one after another. And so that's how I got some of these awards I got. I was just in a parade Saturday. I was the Citizen of the Year for the Afton Lee May Chamber of Commerce. They had a parade, so I got to throw candy out to the kids and all that.
Oh, did you? That's awesome. Earl, you have anything you want to talk to him about?
No, what's amazing is that Rich obviously was a star player at SEMO, Southeast Missouri State, but having only played 1 year of high school basketball, we were talking about that. Tell us how that came about, and then it became a great collegiate career.
Well, I went to St. John's High School, a small Catholic high school on Delore, and they did not have a basketball program. Did not have a program at all. I think they might have played soccer and baseball for seniors, but I don't ever remember anybody having tryouts or anything like that. So for 3 years, I took me an hour each way. I get the Lee May bus, the Bella Fountain streetcar, and the Delore bus. I go right by St. Mary's High School to St. John's. When school was out, I left. I got the bus back to Lee May, but I used my pass. And then you first hour teacher on Monday. You got a public service pass that was good for 27 every day, all day long. So I went to any gyms I could get in. Some of my favorite ones were the Climate YMCA, the Cherokee Community Center down by Anheuser-Busch, and I played against a lot of half-court games against all these guys that were high school stars, and I was always picked first for to be on their team. So I told my parents I'd like to play at least 1 year of high school basketball, see what I can do. So myself, I called the Archdiocese office, and Monsignor Curtin, James Curtin, was the superintendent of schools for the Catholics, and I had a meeting with him. My dad went along, and I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. I want to transfer. I want to play basketball and see what I can do. He said, well, that's not a good enough reason. The schools are crowded. Your grades are okay. There's no reason for you to change. So he denied it. And when I went home, I said, I think I'll just go to the public school or in the district where I live, which was Hancock. We knew everybody anyway. I mean, a small school. We only had 400 kids. And so I went to St. Andrew's Grade School, and the St. Andrew's Grade School boys and the guys from Hancock were played together anyway. So I went to Hancock my senior year, and I was the leading scorer, and we won the conference and all that kind of stuff. And the biggest award I got in high school as a senior was what the Globe Democrat had an all opponent team. The sports writers didn't pick the all district team. The all opponent team for Globe Democrat. Every player that played high school ball that played against you had a vote, and they voted for the 10 best players, and I got the eighth most votes. So that I thought that was pretty good.
It's phenomenal. So then, as he becomes a student 1 year at Hancock, he later becomes a principal in Hancock.
Oh yeah, I stayed there 31 years.
Basketball coach in Hancock, athletic director in Hancock, and then he became the assistant superintendent. And he just lost one of his very close friends who was the superintendent, who was a great athlete.
Roger Broadbeck. Yeah, we grew up together, and we went in together as a team. Guys don't believe this, but he wouldn't take the superintendent's job unless I went with him. And so I went with him in 1975, and our salaries were only $900 apart. That's the way he wanted it, because we were buddies growing up in Limay, and we were Limay guys, and I took care of the community, and he took care of what he wanted to take care of. And we had 15 years, not one crossword.
You had a great deal too, because when you wanted to duck out that back door to go officiate a little early, it was okay. How about your secretary, the gal who she protected you?
Well, I'm the school board were mostly our former students, so
right.
I took vacation by the hour.
Yeah. So Earl, this is the truth. So we had a game. I don't remember what night of the week it was. He says, but he says tomorrow. He says, I got a game in Louisville. He says, I'm gonna duck out early. He says, my secretary take good care of me. So when I knew that, I figured, well, tomorrow I'm gonna have some fun. So I called the school and I said, could I speak to Dr. Eichhorst? Oh, sir, the good doctor's just gone to the bank. I said, you're banking in Louisville now? And then I hung up.
Yeah.
And remember, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But oh boy, we had some great times. Rich has 4 daughters. I have 5 daughters. And I was at an event that he invited me to. He was being honored. He'd been honored in so many. I don't remember what the event was, but he got up and he said, Ron and I, we loved being on the road, and we love to travel because it's the only time we can get a hot shower, because at home all the hot water's gone by the time we're ready.
Yes.
Well, we would take one of our daughters with us once in a while, and of course my 4 daughters, we grew up in Limay, so we only had a rotary phone. We didn't know how to act. But you guys from West County, my wife, I got home from her game, and my wife said, Leanne called me on the phone. I said, well, how did she do that? Well, Zester's daughter taught her how to do it.
Yeah. Oh, it's been great. Let me ask you this here. Tell us, we were talking about this before we came on the air. Your one game with the St. Louis Hawks, I think that's just a great story. And you were 1 for 2 from the field.
1 for 2. I hit my first shot, and they said, don't take the second one, but I did. And it hit the net almost, and it spun back out. So I played 10 minutes.
How did that happen, though, that you played for the Hawks?
Well, what happened, when I was at Fort Knox, we had a great basketball team, and Frank Ramsey was one of the players that I played with at 1 year at Fort Knox. And of course, he was with the Celtics. So we became good friends. And when he came in to St. Louis with the Boston Celtics, I would meet him, and that got me kind of into meet some of the Hawk players, and Al Ferrari and Jack McCarthy became good friends of mine. In fact, Jack McCarthy John McCarthy is the one that set up a blind date with my wife.
That was a great story. Tell them about the blind date with the when you put the sheet over your face.
Well,
oh, come on.
He arranged a date with 2 nurses, both Barbara Seelman and Barbara Pierce. And I was supposed to meet them at a Hawk game on a Sunday afternoon at 1:00. Well, I didn't show up. And so they all went to Al Ferrari's house afterwards. And so they called me and they said, well, why didn't you show up? Why aren't you there? I said, I didn't know it was really on. I thought you guys were just pulling my leg. So they said, well, get over here. Your date's here. Well, I found out that there's 2 Barbaras, I didn't know which Barbara was going to be me. So I didn't want them to see me till I saw them. So I put a pillowcase over my head with the eyes cut out. So that was the deal there.
And that barber is the barber you married.
Yeah, well, first date was on February the 11th, or February the 12th, 1961. And 6 months later, we were married. So we've been married 64 years, still going.
Phenomenal.
You talked about your days playing with Fort Knox. I know a lot of players, great players back then, if they didn't go in the NBA, they played competitive basketball. I know Bob Curlin, and I guess he was a couple years ahead of you. What were those days like playing playing like AAU ball and playing with a lot of different.
Well, you know,
how competitive was that?
Remember the Industrial League?
Yes.
Yeah.
Read about it.
Well, a lot. You know, back in when the NBA started, those guys didn't make a lot of money, and so they had to have jobs. They had to have jobs in the off season. Well, like curling and some guys that had advanced degrees, they made chemistry or something like that.
Right.
They thought it was better to have a job and work their way up the corporate ladder and not take a chance on playing 2 or 3 years and getting cut or whatever. So the Industrial League had a lot of great players, and the AAU was you know, the Missouri AAU. I played for Cocos Plumbing. We had mostly all the guys from Hancock and a few from Bayless, and we won the AAU tournament in 1958-59 season, but we didn't go on, you know, because it wasn't in our, you know, makeup with what we had to go on. But the AAU and the Industrial League, you know, they had great players, and that's the reason why.
Rich, let's go to the NFL and some of the guys that you officiated with in the NFL. Some great officials in those days.
Well, Sonnenberg was one of them, you know, and my crew, my first year, Cal Lepore was on my crew, and then when the USFL started, you know, they were in the spring, and so he became the supervisor of officials for the USFL. So he called me, and I was working in the Big Eight. Bruce Finlinson was an NFL official, and he knew me. And you know, there's a lot of jealousy in officiating.
Well, we know that, don't we?
And so here, I never made any application to the Big Eight, and I skipped over a lot of guys that were working freshman games and practice games and stuff like that for the Big Eight. And here I'm in the Big Eight. And so when Cal Lepore called me, he said, "I want you to come to the USFL." And I said, "Cal, I don't want. I'm happy in the Big Eight." He said, back then, if you worked in the pros, you could not work college officiating. So I said, he said, look, you're going to work more games in 1 year than you're going to do in the Big Eight in 4 or 5 years. So he said, look, I'll call you back. I'll call you back in a week. So he called me back, and I said, why not? So I went to the USFL, and I think the first year in the NFL and the USFL, I worked like 30 games. He worked a game on a Saturday and a Sunday if the travel worked out. So it was a lot of fun.
It was great, and you were a terrific official in the Missouri Valley Conference when little Johnny Overby was running the show. Yeah. What about Overby?
Overby was a classic, you know.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Huh? He liked those cigarettes.
Yeah. Can I tell them about a game I had with you?
Sure. Go ahead.
There was a long field goal, and he's on one of the sticks, and he comes running out. Good. The ball hit the pipe and come out.
And don't you remember what I did afterwards?
Oh, yeah. What? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That I was I was refereeing college football only because Overby liked me. Yeah. I really was not into football. He was a great football official. I was a mediocre at best.
You coached. I look, all the games I worked for you, freshman football. Huh?
Came over and refereed my freshman football games. Him and Schumer.
Yeah.
Was it very common, this for both of you, that the guys that you guys work, and especially at a high level, you see it at a high school level, but different sports at a high level, like you say, NFL, you guys work in major college football, NFL, even baseball. How many guys do you think did that, crossed over sports, and how common was it?
Well, the guys who were really successful, you know, like Barth refereed them all, and Sonnenberg, he had football and he did basketball, and Rich Hantek, he did a couple big time sports. So in those days, those guys were, if you were good in one, you were probably pretty good in another. and you had a good reputation to begin with, Earl. So it was easier than a guy who wasn't doing anything, right, Rich?
You had an easy avenue. They knew you
Right.
in one sport, so that's how it was with football. I never played a game of football in my life, and so they said, "Come on!" I was working basketball, and being a former high school basketball coach, I had a lot of ins to get a good schedule. Come on, So I worked my first game, a 3-man game at Cedar Hill, Northwest, and I didn't know what I was doing. They said just keep the flag in your pocket, and we'll. That's how you get started. And a lot of guys, have to work up the ladder, but one sport takes you into another sport. And I worked a little bit of baseball, but the baseball was. You always had to worry about the rain. I'd be sitting at school, and all of a sudden they say, well, the game is on, the game is off, the game is on, and then there's no clock in baseball.
Well, that's the worst part. Sometimes you get out there. There was a kid who was pitching for U City, Billy Shapiro. You know Bill Shapiro, any of you? Well, anyway, he was a pitcher for U City, and I was umpiring
The
behind
one
him.
that does all the announcing now?
Yeah.
Okay,
So this is unbelievable, Earl. So I'm umpiring a high school baseball game at U City, and Shapiro's pitching. He's literally the slowest working pitcher of all time. We're in about the third inning, and I know I've been there 2 hours. If I had enough already, I walked out to the mound. I said, Shapiro, either speed it up, I said, or everything you throw is going to be a ball. I mean, there's not going to be any more strikes. He's got that thing. He started winging it. That's what I didn't like about baseball. No clock, and you're there forever.
Yeah. So I coached baseball in high school for 4 years. Lima had the LBA, and kids came up the line, and we always had good programs at Hancock, and they won the state championship Class 3 in 1993. So because of the LBA, and they had girls softball and boys basketball. Boys baseball. They go 5th grade on up, and so when they got to high school, you had a lot of talent.
Well, speaking of Hancock, and I go back to when I first started officiating high school, and I worked a lot of games with Glenn Brickey. We were like partners, high school partners, and Gummersbach hired us at Hancock, and we just, in those days, the coach could hire you for games, and that's how I got my start there. And I went over to Bayless with Lombardo,
Tom Lombardo,
who was a fantastic guy. And Bayless and Hancock is where I refereed a whole. And then I also had the pleasure of working a few games at Afton for Phil Noser. Oh, yeah. That was some fun.
God, Phil.
We had a good time.
Like Phil.
He's in Florida now, Noser.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I spoke at the Hancock Athletic Banquet. It had to be about 30-something years ago. I think Ed Stewart was the AD at the time, and I know he was one that brought me over. I know Ed Stewart loved basketball. Yes.
Man. He was a zealot. And he coached anything you could put in front of him. I just saw him the other day. Roger Broadbeck. He passed away on September the 12th, and he had a wake, and Ed was there, so we talked a little bit. He and his buddy Greg Fingerhut.
Yes.
They both were basketball nuts. They loved it. They loved the coaching. They loved to be around it.
We'll take a little break here and have some more conversation with the legendary Rich Eichhorst as well. You're listening to the Earl Austin Experience. We're on the Lou Information Station. This is a special easy hour here. Of course, we're leading up to Illinois versus USC. That'll be at 10 o'clock. We'll be back after this time.
From Ballpark Village to
disheveled guy you've ever want to see. But he was competent and a good basketball official.
Very good. And also, 1946, he was a 165-pound guard on the Missouri University Sugar Bowl team.
Yeah. And
unbelievable.
The Public High League, which you wrote the book on. I mean, look at the coaches they had.
Oh my goodness.
Tom Stanton. I mean, he's a legend. And Jules Blanky was
McKinley High School.
Yeah,
Jules Blanky.
yeah.
Sure. What they call him, the Gray Fox.
Yeah, it was a great league. And at one time, they were one of the top school districts in the country. All those schools: Southwest, Cleveland, McKinley, Beaumont.
What Leon Antone was a tremendous coach. He was over at Southwest.
He was in school with me at SEMO.
Really?
Yeah, he was really, really smart, and he coached at Southwest High School. And he was good. Good
coach.
Yeah, we had a nickname for him. I wanted to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but anyway, his sister married Bob Bragg.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know that, but that's true.
So do you remember I guess it was back in the day, the PHL, I guess in football, the PHL champion would play the Catholic League champion, I guess at the stadium.
Public High Stadium. Yeah.
I think that was like a yearly thing there.
Well, I forgot what year it was, but CBC played St. Louis U at the Stadium 2, the round one.
Bush, that was the annual thing. Right?
35,000 people were there.
Oh, yeah.
Sonnenberg was on the game. Al Conway was on the game. Bud Miller was on the game. I was on the game. We used, back then, 6 officials for a high school game. I mean, it was amazing, the 35,000 folks there at that game. I
would say that might be the biggest crowd that we've seen in a high school game.
Probably, because I was an annual CBC and SLU would play at Busch Stadium every year. I don't think young people don't realize they play and get huge crowds.
And that crew, there'll never be a better high school crew on a game than the guys you had on that game.
The coach at CBC.
CBC, Jack Kirsten was one of the coaches.
Basketball. Great player.
DC Wilka.
DC Wilka. What a great guy he was. And a coach.
Tell us what you know about DC.
Well, he was a wonderful guy, and he just got it done. I mean, he had the Gummersbach and Kylo, the 2 great guards. Remember those 2? And Gummersbach went to Drake for a couple of years, and then he went down to Southwest Missouri or Missouri State. Now he could play, and John Kilo was a lawyer and a spooky guy. He was different, but he was a great player.
Yeah. Well, DC Wilcott, if I remember correctly, I think he was a member of the St. Louis Bombers. No?
Yeah.
That was Earl, are you familiar with the St. Louis Bombers?
Baseball or softball?
No,
softball?
that was a basketball team here.
Okay, tell me. I'm learning.
That's how old I am.
Yes, yeah.
ABA, I think.
Okay.
Macaulay played for them.
Wow.
Yeah, they used to have buy one ticket and get the next one for a penny. So a lot of the high school kids would go to the old arena.
Yes.
Yeah, it was good basketball.
So, Gene Barth. Talk about Gene Barth a little bit. He was a terrific official, I thought, and a no nonsense guy, Rich.
Yeah, well, he was in the Cardinal organization. I think he might have been a catcher. I'm not too sure, but he played professional baseball on the minor league level. Yeah, he was a tough guy with officiating, and he went a long way in the NFL. Of course, I think he got cancer, was it?
He
passed away.
And at a pretty young age,
yeah.
Because he was still young enough to be officiating in the NFL when he took ill. But what a good guy, and he was a no nonsense guy. I was having some problems with the guy by the name of Joe Shosid. He was the supervisor of the Metro Conference. Remember Shosid?
Oh yeah,
the worst. But anyhow, whatever. And he couldn't stand me. And I called Barth and I said, Barth was pretty well liked by Shosin. He was a pretty well respected guy in the Metro Conference. So I said, hey, Gene, I'm having some problems with the Mr. Shosin. What do you think? He says, you're having more than problems. He's going to fire you at the end of the year. So Barth, he didn't sugarcoat it. But what happened, we got lucky. Joe Shosin, he was really not a really good guy to officials except the ones he liked, Earl. So Jerry Lovelace was the assistant commissioner of the Metro, and I had a good relationship with him, and I kept saying, Jerry, what's going on with the show? Said they tell me he's going to fire me. He says, don't worry about it. And I said, but I am worried about it. So finally they fired Shosid, and Rich and I, we hit the jackpot. They hired Dave Phillips.
Well, the Metro was all St. Louis. We had an in there. Larry Albus was a founder and commissioner, and you got Jerry Lovelace, and being from St. Louis, we got our pick. Really, it was a great conference. The Missouri Valley was a great conference at one time, and I don't know, I don't remember the commissioner's name, but he expanded to New Mexico State and to North Texas State. And the teams that played football like Louisville, Memphis, and Cincinnati, they objected to that. And so that started to break up the Missouri Valley. And Larry Albus of St. Louis and had the moxie to start this Metro. And in the Metro, you had to play in a downtown stadium. And Tulane was in the conference. You can imagine a football game in the Superdome. Yes. The locker rooms were like 4 blocks away from the.
Remember that? Yes, it was unbelievable.
So when the second half would start, the other team wasn't out here. The other coach wanted them technical for being late. I said, they're probably walking here, from 4 blocks away. But it was. I love the Metro.
I thought unbelievable. Like you said, Louisville, Memphis State, Virginia Tech. I mean, it was Tulane. I mean, it was some great teams. At that time, SLU was kind of down, but you still went to the Checker Dome or arena, whatever, to see these were top 10, top 20 type teams. Coming to St. Louis.
And Louisville had a coach who I think is one of the greatest coaches ever, and he just doesn't get the recognition that you hear from all these other guys. Denny Crum. I just thought he was so fair, wasn't he, Rich?
Really fair. I got to go. Dave Phillips called me I think it was 1980 or 81. He called me and said, can you get away? I want to send you to Japan, Tokyo, to referee 3 basketball games. So I said, yeah, I think I can swing that. So Denny Crum was one of the teams. And Oregon, Penn State, and Louisville, they played each other over there. So I was over in Tokyo for a week working basketball. Now the fans in Tokyo, they loved the cheerleaders, but they didn't care about the game so much. But it was a great experience.
So you got a week over in Japan, and Roger took care of the store.
Yeah. Can you believe that? A lot of people ask me, well, where all did you officiate? All over the United States. But when you say, well, I went to Tokyo to work 3 basketball games and made money, so that was a great experience. And Denny Crum was a gentleman, and he had great teams.
I remember one year they won the national championship, and the next year, Denny had a really kind of an off season. They were like, I don't know, maybe 18 and 14 or one of those years, and he didn't act any different that year than he did the year that he won the national championship from the bench. I learned a lesson from Denny Crum one night too. We had just gone to 3 officials, and I was on the sideline right next to Denny, and there was a play on the other side of the floor that a player just got annihilated, and the official there didn't do anything. So Crum says, "What do you got?" To me, I said, "Well, that's not my call." Well, he didn't say anything. And then there was a timeout. He said, I need to talk to you. So I walked over. He says, if that's not your call, then we don't need 3 officials. We only need 2. He said, you saw what I saw, and I learned a good lesson. When something really, really bad happens, I don't care where it happens, you have to blow your whistle and you have to go get it. But you're taught to stay in your own area. Don't stretch the floor. But that was a play that needed to be called.
Well, I had an experience with him. It was at a critical time of the game, and one of his opponent, one of his players, the opponent had the inside rebound, and he got it, and I didn't call anything, and then the contact made that guy walk. So I called a foul on the Louisville player, and it looked funny because it was kind of delayed, and I went over. He called me over, and I said, Denny, I tried to save you a foul, but I had to come back and get it because it was an advantage, advantage disadvantage, and he accepted it.
Yeah, he was terrific.
Yeah, see, I grew up a Louisville fan. Obviously, my uncle played there. He played for John Droma, but then Denny, obviously, he came from John Wooden, Staten with John Wooden, stop assistant. But yeah, he was kind of the same, just kind of cool. Always had the rolled up program, and was just kind of cool. Didn't ride officials, and it was just a golden era of U of L basketball. And like you said, they just kind of, like you said, the Metro League was kind of a new thing as well. And then, but to have them, they just kind of carried the banner. And then you had some other great programs that just kind of followed suit in that program. So which made it out of nowhere, it became a great league.
Who were the two brothers that played there?
Rodney and Scooter McRae from Mount Vernon, New York.
Yeah.
They were thinking when they won the championship in 1980, Scooter was the starting center forward. He got hurt his knee, missed the season. Then Rodney took his place in the starting lineup. And then Daryl Griffith obviously was the
Rodney. I believe he could touch the top of the backboard.
Yeah, Rodney was something else.
He
was a great player. When we were living in New York, we watched Rodney before we moved here. We watched Rodney and Scooter took Mount Vernon to the state championship. Yeah. So that was before I moved here.
Another gentleman was Jack Hartman. Really, really something else.
Yes.
Jack Hartman was, I think he was the smartest guy on the bench towards officials. And I think I've said this before, but I'll repeat myself. What Jack Hartman would do, if I missed a call, and like I've said before, I've missed many, he would never yell at me or yell at an official. He would just say in a very, very nice, firm voice, "Hey, Ron, you're a lot better than that." You couldn't penalize him, but he got the message across, and he was so respected that you listened to him. He was one of those guys that just. And Rich, you met him at the beginning at SIU.
Yeah, well, I was also working football, and so at SIU, and so I had a football game, and they were practicing. The basketball team was practicing. So when you kind of, the officials dressed in kind of the same way, and his practices were quiet. It was he called it his classroom, and he wanted it quiet, and he taught. I mean, that impressed me. At one time we had a rule where the coaches could not call you by name, and I had a game down there with Bill Valentine. Bill Valentine was an American League umpire.
Oh yeah.
And so I had a game with SIU and I can't think of the name. I can't think of the other team's name, but it was double overtime game. But during the game, Jack Hartman called Bill Valentine by name Bill, and he stuck him with a technical. Now this is in the first half, and then up and down, he called him by a name again, by his name, 2 technicals. And so, and I had guys in the front row behind the scores table were all from Cape, so they knew me. And I was giving them one of these sweat jobs, what do we got? And so they start laughing at the crowd, and the laughter got bigger and bigger. And I looked around, and Valentine had the ball underneath the basket, and he looked like a billiken anyway. And everybody was laughing because the cheerleader was behind him with her leg lifted up like she was urinating on it. And when he saw that, he gave the cheerleader a technical. So we had 3 technicals in the first half. Well, the game ended up double overtime, and SIU loses, and so I get in the dressing room first, and the dressing room is like an L. You go in and you make a left so you can't see from the hallway, and all of a sudden there's a big scuffle and things carrying on. It's the security guards got Jack Hartman to the ground. He wanted Valentine, you know.
Oh, I can imagine.
So we had to wait. We had to wait about an hour after the game to make it so we could get out of there safe. I parked in the back of the arena, and he parked in the front. So I'm going to my car, and here comes Jack Hartman after me on the parking lot. He says, "I don't have no problem with you, but you better tell the truth when I talk this game to the commissioner." I said, "I'll tell the truth." So I think any day I'm going to get a call. 2 weeks went by, and I heard nothing. All of a sudden, I got a call. I want a complete written letter about what happened. You know, now you don't want to put in writing against one of your officials,
Right.
but you know. So I cream puffed it somehow and got by with it.
We doing okay? We still got some time, Earl?
1 minute there.
1 minute.
And we're gonna wrap it up.
What do you
here.
want? You have something you want to say?
No, I just echo what Jack Hartman was, one of the great tacticians.
Yes.
Of the sport. Remember, obviously the Big Eight. You know, you had Norm and a lot of great coaches, but Jack was one of the great ones. But I guess we are going to wrap it up. Are we ready to wrap it
Yeah,
up?
I just had one question.
Oh, okay,
So,
go right ahead.
Do you still watch like the game now, and how do you feel about the game changing to more like shooting?
You can watch
threes and stuff
officials.
like that? And
Yeah, I still watch it.
and how do you feel about the officiating? And
When I officiated, mostly a two-man game. I love the two-man game. Ron and I, when we worked together, just the two of us, we knew what each one was going to do. Our eyes weren't on the same thing at the same time, and it was a lot of fun. You know, you got the three-man game. You have to have it now because the players are bigger, faster, and better. But back then, when you had a two-man game, if you could get into the game, you had a euphoria that made you work.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the great officials of all times echoed what you said. Earl Brown never liked the three-man game. He loved the two-man game also because of that reason. You know, you just worked.
Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. First, Ron, thank you for joining us an hour early and then bringing in another legend in Rich. Of course, this was a great hour. We learned a lot today. I learned about the St. Louis Bombers.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm going to go read up about them.
And I have one shout out
Go ahead.
to Barb Eichhorst. Boy, you are a saint to be with this guy for 67 years, boy. 64 years. Oh, it's awesome. Great family, has 4 great daughters and son-in-laws and everything else. It's terrific.
All right. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Earl Austin Experience. Stay tuned for Fighting Illini football. It's the Illini versus the USC Trojans.
Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill has a new menu.
But don't freak out.
Hot Shots